I am going to tell you something plain. You are standing in your kitchen right now, maybe wiping down your counters, thinking they are clean. But they are not. Not the way you think. There are colonies of bacteria living on that counter, in that sink, around that drain. Microscopic cities thriving in the warm, dark places you cannot see. Most of them will not hurt you. Your body handles them. But some of them are waiting. They are waiting for your child to touch that counter and then touch their mouth. They are waiting for you to set down raw chicken and then a tomato. They are waiting, and they do nothing but wait. Because the conditions in your kitchen, the warmth, the moisture, the old food scraps, they are not a kitchen to you and me. They are a paradise. And you are about to give up on the cleanest, safest kitchen you will ever have for want of something nobody taught you. A man who promises you a miracle by the calendar is selling something. And I will not do that, but I will tell you what I have seen work, what my own mother did, and what the science behind it truly is. My name is Elias. My family came here from the Palatinate in 1838, and we have farmed and lived on the same ground in Lancaster County ever since. I grew up in my mother's kitchen watching her work. She never spoke much about cleaning as if it were something separate from living. It was just a part of the rhythm, part of the day, like feeding the animals or mending a coat. And one thing she kept, always, was a jar. A plain glass jar filled with vinegar. Not bleach, not ammonia, not any of the strange bright bottles that came later. Vinegar. It sat on the back of the stove, right where she could reach it without thinking. It was there when I was 6 years old, watching her wipe down the table after we ate. It was there when I was 16, learning to help in the kitchen myself. It was there when I came home from my own place to help my father in the fields and found her still doing the same thing. When I married Esther and brought her into my kitchen for the first time, the first thing she did after she hung her coat was look for that jar. She knew, without me telling her, that this was how we did things. I asked her once, long after we had been married, why she had known. She said her mother kept the same jar. Different families, different lines, different parts of the county, but the same thing. The old ways do not die because they work. They persist because they are cheaper, because they are simpler, and because they actually do what they are supposed to do. Here's the thing, almost everyone has this backward on, and it changes everything you think about what a clean kitchen really means. We have been taught to think that clean means invisible. Clean means we have killed everything. We have poisoned the countertop so dead that nothing can live there, not a single living thing. We have made a wasteland of our surfaces because we have been told that is safety. But the old folks knew something truer, something that modern science has actually caught up to and confirmed. Clean does not mean dead. Clean means balanced. It means you have encouraged the good work, the natural cleaners, the acid, the preservation, to move in faster and stronger than the rot and the spoil. You are not trying to make a wasteland. You are trying to make a place where the good forces win. That is entirely different. Work, and it changes what you reach for, and how you think about your kitchen from that day forward. Quick word, before I go further, the old methods my family uses. There is more of it than fits in any one video. I gathered the whole of it into a book at eliasyoder.com. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again. Now, let me tell you what I learned from my mother, and what Esther learned from her mother, and what we have taught our children, and what they are teaching theirs. You will need one thing to start. One thing. One glass jar. Nothing fancy. Nothing special. A canning jar, a pickle jar, an old pasta sauce jar, a mason jar of any size, anything with a lid that screws on tight. That is it. You do not need expensive equipment. You do not need to buy anything new. Most of you have 5 of these sitting in your cupboard. Right now, you will need white vinegar, the cheap kind from the grocery store, the kind that costs maybe $2 or $3 a gallon depending on where you live, 5% acidity. That is the standard. That is all you need to know about it. Do not buy fancy vinegar. Do not buy vinegar with herbs already in it. Do not buy apple cider vinegar for this. Buy the plain, white vinegar, the cheapest bottle they have. That is all. That is the whole foundation. 1 jar, 1 bottle of cheap vinegar, and one thing you already have: patience and the willingness to do something the same way every day. Here's how it works, and I will tell you why it works so you understand it. Not just trust me or follow me blindly. Vinegar is acetic acid. Acid is an environment where most of the bacteria that make you sick, the ones that cause food poisoning, the ones that ruin your food, the ones that make things smell wrong, they cannot thrive. They can survive for a short time. But they cannot reproduce, they cannot build colonies, they cannot spread the warmth and moisture of your kitchen is their paradise. It is the perfect hotel for them to stay, to multiply, to take over. But acid is their prison. When you introduce acid regularly into that environment, you change which life forms can dominate. You change the rules of the game, the good bacteria. The ones that preserve and protect the ones that have lived with vinegar for thousands of years, they tolerate acid, they can survive in it, but the bad ones cannot. So over time, over weeks and months, the chemistry of your counter changes. The balance shifts. The environment no longer supports the growth of the things that spoil and sicken. This is not magic. I will not tell you it is magic. This is biology. This is the same principle that has kept vinegar pickles fresh for 1,000 years without refrigeration. It is the same reason a barrel of sauerkraut stays good all winter. Acid changes what can live. That is all that is. Everything here is the method. Step by step, and after each step I will tell you what it does and why it matters. First, you take your jar and you fill it roughly half full with white vinegar. That is all. No water, no herbs, no tricks, no essential oils, no lemon juice mixed in. Just vinegar. Why? Because you want the acidity concentrated. If you water it down right away, you are weakening the very thing that does the work. You are cutting your own strength before you even start. I will tell you plainly, the old folks never diluted their vinegar for general cleaning. That is a modern notion meant to stretch a product, meant to make it seem less harsh, meant to sell you more bottles because they did not last as long. Your mother did not have time to argue with diluted vinegar. She wanted it strong. She wanted it to work next. You fill the rest of the jar. Leave maybe an inch at the top so you have room to shake it without spillage with water. Plain tap water. Why water? Because vinegar alone is harsh on some surfaces, and because you will be using this every day, maybe many times a day, and pure vinegar can eat through certain finishes over time. It can dull wax, it can strip certain stains on wood, it can etch some stone. The water softens it just enough to be practical without losing the power. You are not making it weak. You are making it practical. You are aiming for roughly equal parts, but do not fret over it or measure it too carefully. A bit more. Vinegar is fine. A bit more water is fine. The chemistry does not stop working because you missed a precise ratio. This is not a laboratory. This is a kitchen. The old ways do not require precision like that. Now you screw that lid on tight, tight enough that nothing leaks, but not so hard. You cannot open it yourself later. Let it sit for 1 day overnight if you can before you use it. Why? Because you want the water and the vinegar to become one solution to fully mix and integrate, not 2 layers sitting separate. And because that sitting time lets the mixture begin to work on anything living in the jar itself. When you open it tomorrow and smell it, you will smell vinegar. That is all. That is how you know it is ready. Do not expect it to smell like flowers or oranges or anything else. It will smell like vinegar. That is the smell of acetic acid. And that is exactly what you want. Now here is the crucial part, the part where patience and understanding matter most every morning, or when you feel your kitchen has gotten away from you when the smells are not quite right, or the counter feels sticky. You take that jar and you shake it. Shake it, well, maybe 10 seconds, hard enough to hear the liquid moving. That agitation does something real and important. It breaks the surface tension of the liquid. It brings oxygen into the mixture. When acid and oxygen meet, they work faster. They become more active. After you shake it, you take a clean cloth, a rag, a towel, something you have already washed, and you dampen it with the mixture, not soaking, not dripping, 1033 damp, like you have wrung it out once after soaking it. Why? Because you do not want puddles. Puddles are standing water. Standing water is the opposite of what you want. You want the surface wet with vinegar solution for long enough for the acid to do its work, and then you want it to dry. Drying is important. That is when the acid sets. Then you wipe. You wipe your counters, your sink, your table, your stove, everywhere. Food touches or where your hands go. Constantly you will notice the smell that is the vinegar evaporating into the air. As it evaporates, it is depositing a thin layer of acid on the surface. That layer is your defense. It is not a coating. You can see with your eye, but it is there, and it changes the chemistry of that spot. It makes it inhospitable to the bacteria that cause trouble. It creates an environment where rot moves slowly, where spoilage is delayed, where the things that make you sick find it harder to establish themselves. Do this once a day, and your kitchen will be cleaner than most. Do it twice a day, morning and evening, and you will notice something shift. You will notice it in a few ways. The smells change. The dark spots in the corners of the sink begin to fade. Not because you have scrubbed harder with some chemical poison, but because the conditions are no longer supporting them. The drain stops smelling like old things are rotting down there. Your cutting board stops having that faint odor that makes you wonder if you washed it well enough. Not because you are poisoning things into submission, but because the environment itself is no longer a paradise for the bad. It is becoming a place where good bacteria, the ones that preserve, the ones that do not make you sick, are winning. Now I will tell you the ways people get this wrong, because I want you to succeed, and I do not want you to give up before you have really tried it. The first mistake is impatience. A man will do this once, maybe twice. Notice no dramatic change by the afternoon, and think it does not work. He will think, well, Elias was wrong, or this is some kind of folksy nonsense that feels good, but does not actually clean. But this is wrong thinking, and it misses the whole point. This is not a poison that kills on contact. This is not a bleach bomb that murders everything in a 10-foot radius. This is a slow shift in the chemical environment. It takes days to show itself. It takes weeks to become powerful. It takes months to become so reliable that you stop thinking about it. Your mother did not do this once and then declare her kitchen clean forever. She did this every day for 40 years. Do not judge the method by the first week. Judge it by the second month. That is when you will truly see the difference. The second mistake is mixing it with other things. A man will think, well, if vinegar is good, then vinegar and bleach is better. If one cleaner is good, two must be better. But this is wrong, and it is dangerous in a way that can hurt you. When you mix vinegar and bleach, you create a gas that will damage your lungs. That is not me being cautious or paranoid. That is simple chemistry, and it is a real danger. Vinegar and bleach do not belong together. Do not do it, ever. Use the vinegar alone, or use something else, but never both. I am telling you this because I care about your safety, and because I have seen people hurt by mixing things they did not understand. The third mistake is using it on certain surfaces without testing first. Vinegar is acid. Acid can dull some finishes. Certain stones like marble or limestone, certain paints, certain old stains on wood or bamboo. If your counters are made of marble or limestone or antique wood, or anything you are not sure about, use a test spot first, somewhere hidden, somewhere nobody will see it if something goes wrong. Let it sit for an hour. Wipe it clean. See if anything changed. If nothing changed, if the surface looks exactly the same, you are fine, and you can use vinegar everywhere. If something did change, if the shine dulled or the color shifted, then vinegar is not for that spot, and you use something else there. Respecting the material keeps you from having to redo the whole thing. Respecting the material keeps you from anger and waste. The fourth mistake is thinking this replaces soap and water. It does not. It could never replace it. When you have a mess, spilled milk, spattered grease, flour dust, raw chicken blood on the counter, you wash with soap and water first. That removes the bulk of the filth. Then you follow with vinegar. Vinegar is not here to replace the work of soap. It is here to replace the killing power of chemical cleaners and to maintain the balance in between times. It is maintenance. It is not the whole answer. The fifth mistake is using too much. A man will think if half a jar is good, then using the whole jar is better. But the vinegar solution does not work by being overwhelming or toxic. It works by being consistent. It works by being there every day, creating an environment that supports good bacteria over bad. Using too much does not make it work faster. It just makes your kitchen smell like a pickle factory, and it can damage your surfaces faster. A damp cloth is all you need. Not a dripping cloth. Damp. That is the right amount. Now let me tell you something that will clarify your thinking about why you have never heard this before, why it is not taught, why your daughter probably does not know it. I am not angry about this, but I am going to speak plainly because you deserve the truth. Almost nobody knows this anymore. Not because someone schemed it in a back room. Not because there was some conspiracy. No one had to conspire. It is worse than a conspiracy because it is a system. Nobody had to coordinate. It simply pays better to sell a man a $30 bottle of antibacterial spray every month than to teach him to keep a $2 jar of vinegar. The whole shape of the cleaning aisle in the supermarket, the colors, the promises, the sizes, the marketing, the fear. It is all built on a simple fact of business. A man who buys a bottle today does not come back next week, so he must be made afraid. He must be told that if he does not use this product, his family will get sick. He must be shown pictures of germs. He must be reminded that bacteria are everywhere and they are dangerous. But a man who keeps a jar of vinegar and uses it every day has already bought his product for the year it cost him $2. Where is the profit in that? There is none. There is no profit in teaching people to use what they already have. So nobody markets it. Nobody puts it on television. Nobody puts it on billboards. Nobody tells a young woman setting up her first house that this is how her grandmother did it, because her grandmother did not buy anything. She just used what was in her cupboard. The system does not require a conspiracy. It only requires that nobody has a reason to tell you the truth. Nobody gets paid to teach you this. Everybody gets paid to sell you something else. But I am telling you now, because I am not selling you anything. I am telling you because my mother told me, and because Esther's mother told her, and because I have seen it work for 60 years in our own kitchen without a single person getting sick from something I could have prevented. I am telling you because the old ways are worth remembering. Let me say it back to you plainly so you have the shape of it clear in your mind. You get a jar, any jar. You fill it half with vinegar and half with water. You let it sit overnight. You shake it before you use it. You dampen a clean cloth with the solution and wipe your kitchen, counters, sink, handles, table, anything food touches or your hands touch once or twice a day. You do this every day, not sometimes, not when you remember. Every day. Over time, not overnight, not in a week, but over time, the balance in your kitchen shifts. The bacteria that make trouble cannot dominate. The environment does not support them. Your kitchen becomes not a playground for infection and rot, but a place where the chemistry itself is working for you, not against you. And here's what I want to ask you in the comments. I read every one. I learned the whole country from these comments. I learned how people live in Maine and Colorado and Georgia and Texas. I learned what they grow, what they cook, how they live. Tell me, what is one surface in your kitchen you've been worried about? The cutting board that never quite feels clean no matter how hard you scrub? The drain that always smells a bit like old things are rotting down there? The handle everybody touches, the one you wash and still does not feel right? Tell me that, tell me your county. If you will tell me whether you have stone counters or laminate or wood, tell me if your mother used vinegar or if this is new to you. Tell me if there is someone who taught you to do things the old way, and who that was. Your grandmother, your neighbor, an old friend. These comments are not just words to me. They are proof that there are people all over this country who still care about doing things right, who still believe that a clean kitchen is not about poison and fear, but about balance and work and the old knowledge that stood the test of time. Tell me your story. Tell your neighbor about this channel. There is not much left that is honest anymore, but this is honest. Next time, I am going to show you something about your water that you have never thought about, something in every tap in this country that the old folks understood and we have forgotten, and what you can do about it for almost nothing. They knew things about water that we have lost, and it is worth remembering. My grandfather used to say that the people who built this country built it with their hands. They built it clean. They built it safe. They built it without chemicals that their great-grandchildren would be afraid of. They built it by knowing what worked and passing it to their children without fanfare and without selling anything to anybody. That is not a small thing. That is the whole thing. When you keep a jar of vinegar in your kitchen, when you use it every day, you are not just keeping your family safer. You are not just saving money. You are remembering that your hands are enough. Your time and your attention are enough. You do not need a corporation to do the thinking for you. You never did. That jar is just a reminder. That jar is a small rebellion against the idea that you need to be sold something to be safe. The old ways work. They have always worked, and they are still there, waiting for you to remember them.